The meeting is now live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission for July 8th, 2022. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, Downtown Commissioners currently fill 4 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of design review. All committee members and staff are participating virtually, and we appreciate everyone's patience as we continue to do this for, I think, this month and the next. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website, also linked on the Downtown Commission's page. We have an option for the public to listen live by phone, and welcome to everyone listening with us today. At this time, I will go through and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. You folks know the drill. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, unmute if you are, and committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Andrew Fletcher, Vice Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tal Frankfurt.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Is Kimberly Hunter, did she log in? No? Okay. Stephen Lee Johnson.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am here. Robin Rains.
Good morning.
Good morning. Megan Rogers.
Good morning.
Guillermo Rodriguez said he cannot make it today. Ricardo Sejo.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ruth Summers.
Good morning.
And I did not see Sage Turner. Is she here? Okay, not at this time. Very good. Thank you. So I will begin our agenda items. I will try to state each section of the agenda aloud. And our first item is our approval of minutes. We have our draft action minutes. Again, that is linked on our committee page if you'd like to see that. The full minutes is the video recording of our meeting, but we have the draft action meeting minutes there for our approval. So first of all, are there any revisions to any of the draft action minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Stephen Lee Johnson. Is there a second?
Second, Summers.
Second by Ruth Summers. I'll go through the roll call. Andrew?
Aye.
Tal?
Aye.
Stephen Lee?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Robin?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Ruth?
Aye.
The motion carries. Very good. I don't think we received any public comment to this point in time. We do have a live call in, and we will address that if there are any. Is there any public comment I'm missing, folks?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. Our staff is pinch hitting. Congratulations to Dana. She had a baby girl yesterday. Let me see if I get the name right. Amari Pearl. Did I do that? Okay. So congratulations to Dana. So we have multiple staff. It takes about 4 staff members to fill her shoes, helping us out this morning. So we will move on into our new business. We only have one item to review today, and that is the downtown public safety updates. We have Captain Mike Lamb with Asheville Police Department here to discuss that with us. And we appreciate you putting information together and responding to some of our questions and being here with it today. And so I turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, about a month ago, I was asked to put together what our crime stats are updates for this year, 2022 so far. The stats will be from January to June, so it'll be the first 6 months of the year. And also a 5-year comparison. So that's everything that we'll be looking at, along with staffing and our hiring numbers, how current staffing is, but also how potential future staffing looks as well. So let's see if I can present here. Let's see. There we go. Can everybody see that okay? Okay, so this is the geographical area that that we're looking at. So it's from the roundabout, South Charlotte Street being the border, including South Slope, and then western end of Patton, the Patton Klingman area, and then of course you've got downtown Central Business District as well. So stats are taken from the last 5 years, and all crimes are year to date from January to June. Let me see. There we go. Okay. So looking at our stats, this year we have probably the main point is violent crime is the highest that it's been for the last 5 years. These are our Part 1 UCR crimes. So it's our violent crime and then our property crime that we report to the FBI. And you can see here's our 2018 numbers. We had 29 incidents of violent crime, 224 of property crime. 2019, there were 228. And then 2020, we had also 28 violent crime, 191 incidents of property crime. 2021, we had 35 incidents. And you can see property crime was higher during our 2021 year. And then so far this year, we've had 38 incidents of violent crime, and then 223 incidents of property crime. But one thing to also consider is that, we are seeing underreporting here, especially over the last 2 years, because of the list of incidents, list of crimes that or at least incidents that we are not responding to because of our low staffing numbers. So it's incumbent on a lot of folks, especially with property crime, to self-report. So they have to go online, use our online reporting tool, especially if it's for stuff like graffiti, property damage, larcenies that are not in progress, and then those related incidents. So I was also asked to put together our nuisance crime stats year to date, January through June. So nuisance crimes include crimes like alcohol violations, city ordinance violations, trespassing, prostitution charges, and stuff like that. There's 2 ways that we get stats on nuisance crimes. The first way is officer initiated. So when an officer witnesses a crime in progress, and then they address it, and then that call is built based on the officer initiating that call. The second way is public reporting. So if we have someone from the community that calls and reports the nuisance crime, so that is what these stats are comprised of. All of these stats are citizen or community call-in stats. And so these are with the officer initiated stats removed from the reporting. So 2018, we had 40 incidents. 2019, we had 124 incidents. 2020, we had 66 incidents, then 50 in 2021, and then 61 in 2022. So we were talking about the high number in 2019, especially with citizen call-ins. And that, we believe, coincides with the what citizens are aware that officers will respond to, and then also will address. So we again think lower numbers now because of the list of calls that we put out that we can't respond to because of our low staffing numbers. Speaking of low staffing, also, it's the reason that we have that list, and the reason that we reallocate personnel is because we have to keep our response times consistent. So I just want to remind everybody of that it's most important for us to be able to respond quickly and adequately to crimes in progress, to violent crimes in progress, to B&Es in progress, and those types of crimes. Does anybody have any questions about stats before I move on to staffing?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, Captain Lamb, I've got a question about exactly what makes up one crime. So for instance, oftentimes there's a crime, there's multiple charges in the same event, assault and battery, possession of a weapon or in the same event. So when you say there's 38 violent crimes, is there 38 charges or 38 individuals who have been charged, 38 distinct incidents? What exactly makes up one unit in that stack?
So the good question, it is not the individuals charged and not the list of charges, it's per incident. So it's based on our UCR stats, which is, I think now it's transferred over to NIBRS, which is our mandatory reporting, and we turn in all that data to the FBI so that they have those stats also. And that's kind of what's factored into when you look at a community's crime stats on some of these other like Neighborhood Scout, those other pages that look at crime stats throughout the nation. That's what those are comprised of. But it is, so it's each incident that an officer takes a report on. And it's a good question also because it's important to understand that one incident. So you may have like an assault with a deadly weapon, and which is also a burglary in progress. Both of those will be lumped into the same one because it all happened within the same incident. So the numbers could definitely be higher.
And this is UCR is Uniform Crime Reporting, and you mentioned another word, NB something. I'm not familiar with all the acronyms. I apologize.
No worries. It's so UCR Uniform Crime Reporting has transferred over to NIBRS, NIBRS, which is the National Incident. I can't remember all the acronyms for it. It's the new FBI's reporting standards for agencies to turn over information to the federal government as far as crimes.
Very good. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions on the number of incidents and the reporting before he moves into the attrition? Okay. Thank you.
And it came to me also it's National Incident-Based Reporting System is NIBRS. So just took me a second. Okay, looking at APD attrition by the numbers, since June 2020, we've had 98 officers resign. One resigned twice, and 2 retired and 2 were terminated. Out of that loss of officer experience, we lost 580 total years of combined experience. Since then, we've hired 49, and 3 of those that have resigned have came back. So looking at APD attrition by the numbers for this year, we have 13 officers so far this year have resigned in 2022. We have sworn officers that are available to work. We have 158 out of our allotted 238 officers. And then when you factor in various types of leave, medical leave, injuries, we actually have 147 out of allotted 238. So what this equates to is a 39% reduction in staffing. So looking at hiring, we have 12 new officers that have completed their basic law enforcement training and are being sworn in today. Yes, Tal.
Yeah, just what do you attribute the attrition for? What are the reasons that people are giving?
So since 2020, we've had a variety of reasons, anywhere from compensation to lack of community support, to lack of political support, to moving away to be with family, to moving on to better paying jobs. Initially, the bulk was basically just an overall lack of support combined with the low compensation.
And on the low compensation, I heard something that there are only like 5 or a handful of officers that actually live in Asheville. the rest actually are living outside of Asheville. Is that correct?
Yeah, especially initially when we started having resignations, we had um, we had several that went to Henderson County Sheriff's Office. We had a few that went to Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, Haywood County Sheriff's Office, which, initially we'd never really seen that because they, you go from a municipality to a sheriff's office, which, could potentially have a new sheriff elected every couple of years. So then there's concerns about job security there. And then, but at the same time, we were also seeing different sheriff's offices that were paying more than the Asheville Police Department, which is new compared to what I've experienced over the last 24 years. Yes, Andrew.
So, do you have any information about how APD is one department of the city is having trouble, being fully staffed? And is there an average baseline for all city departments about because I know that a lot of what's affecting working class jobs, whether they're in municipal government or even, and I know restaurants that are down 40% staff too. So, how different are the numbers with the police department's struggle with staffing compared to, say, the fire department or Parks and Rec? Or do we have any idea of how this compares to other departments and whether it's a citywide problem or not?
It's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. I'm not sure what the numbers look like within the other city departments, but I think we can get HR to get that information together for sure.
Thank you.
So you have a budget for an additional 70 officers, right? That is basically not being used. Is that correct?
So we worked with HR to try. Well, one, we're having to use a lot of that for overtime as well because we have less officers. We have more officers that are having to work overtime, which I'll cover that a little bit later on in the presentation. But then we had some of that money used for compensation whenever I don't know if y'all remember the compensation study that was done 2019, 2020. And so there were adjustments made that kicked in compensation later in 2020 and 2021. And so the budget was used with some of that, but then also having to pay officers overtime to be able to cover shifts and cover special events, especially mandatory special events. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. So hiring, we have 12 new officers that have completed basic training being sworn in today at 2:00. They will start field training this month. We have 9 new officers that have completed their field training this spring and that are now working patrol. We had 2 good hiring groups for the last 2 hiring groups. We're concerned now because there are only 4 people currently in the hiring process for the next academy class when there's typically 15 in the process at this point. So we're hoping that the company that we contracted with Epic, that once they get back our recruitment packages, that we can get those out and start generating more numbers from what the recruitment company presents to us and is able to that we're able to use to get more recruits. All right, so I was also asked to provide district staffing. In 2020, Charlie District was combined with David District due to staffing. So if you remember, 2019, the downtown was its own district. I was the district commander for that district. I had 4 different sergeants, and the majority officers were either on bicycle or on foot most of the time, so that you had greater officer presence within the downtown area. Plus, it was officers that worked there full time, that knew the businesses, knew the folks that lived downtown, and were able to be out on foot, talking with people and building relationships there. So in 2020, downtown coverage went from 8 officers typically covering at a shift down to 2 officers covering at a shift. So we did a recombination of Charlie District and David District, which is South Asheville. So now the district, which downtown is, ranges all the way from 240 in the Central Business District, all the way down to Airport Road in South Asheville. So that's a large geographical area. Looking district-wide at the 3 different districts that we have, which is Baker, which is East Asheville and North Asheville, Adam, which is West Asheville, everything west of the French Broad River, and then Charlie David. We have an average of 5 or 6 officers per district, which is our daily average. So one thing that really hurts us, especially now in the summer, with having 5 or 6 officers per district, is when we have an unplanned protest that occurs within the downtown area, we're having to pull officers from each one of these districts. So in order to make sure that everyone's safe downtown, that everyone is able to exercise their First Amendment right, but also to be safe from any kind of outside influences there. So it's difficult because with only 5 to 6 officers per district, that means that other districts are not being covered. So there's less police coverage that are out there in the neighborhoods whenever these type of events occur, especially one that's spontaneous and unplanned. We definitely appreciate the ones that folks that come ahead of time and say, hey, we're having this event. They go through usually John Philman with permitting, and then that helps us to be able to better gauge our staffing and bring extra officers in. But definitely the unplanned ones are a burden on our district staffing and affect police coverage citywide. Yes, Megan.
Hey, has there been any discussion of what it would take or what you would need to bring back the downtown unit?
Yeah, I know that's definitely on the table. I think we have, right now we have to make sure our districts are staffed well enough to still keep our response times flat. And we have nobody in general assignment in our detectives division. So we have as you've seen in the news, I'm sure we've had our retirees coming back to work some of those cases part-time to help with having no detectives in general assignment. And like my staff, the community resource officers, community unit, we lost one of our officers. She resigned last month. So now I'm down to 1 officer in our CROs. We have half the SROs, the school resource officers that we used to, and then half of the housing unit that we used to. So patrol was the focus, but we also have to backfill these other, it's really important to have property crime detectives. So I think those have to be filled first. And then once those different divisions and specialty units are at adequate staffing, then we'll look at bringing back a downtown bicycle unit, because it's those relationships and being out on foot, being on bicycle, is really important for us. And I know everyone loves seeing the officers on bike and officers on foot. So yeah, but I think once we get staffing back up within those other units, we're able to look at bringing that back downtown. All right, so last we'll talk about burnout. So in addition to the 2 officers assigned in the downtown area, we do hire officers extra duty to help cover the Central Business District. And these officers help to provide extra coverage downtown. The unfortunate thing is because of our staffing, these assignments are only being filled at approximately 50% fill rate. So we may have an additional 1 to 2 officers just depending on who is signing up for these extra duty assignments. And then officers in competition with the downtown assignment, we also have to have officers that fill vacancies within the districts. Whenever somebody is out injured, we have to have an officer to fill that slot. So they're working overtime to fill those vacancies. And then whenever we do have a planned protest, we have additional officers that are required to work to help cover those special events and protests. And, as you know, downtown's very busy. And we've had a lot of these events over the last couple of weekends. So we have several officers that haven't had a weekend off for the last month or two because of all the events. So we are starting to see officers experiencing burnout, just valuing time off to rest and be with their families rather than work overtime. So yeah, it's definitely what we're experiencing now. So that's the end of my presentation. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, thank you for doing this and pulling all the stats and for all the work you all are doing. So what do you need, or what would be your ask? How do we make this better? Because it's a pretty gloomy picture here. Like, right, crime is going up, resources are going down, potential for additional burnout. Right, we've had the survey from businesses in the area that are right, like the filling downtown. I think there was a comment a few months ago that on this call there was a perception that crime is going down. So like clearly crime is not going down. So what can we do?
Well, I definitely think continue to show support for especially our patrol officers. There were several good stories that came out of this last 4th of July event. During the daytime, the officers were out on foot, having interactions with folks attending the event. And, the consensus was officers just explaining how it was so nice to hear people, tell them they were appreciated, thank you for being at the event. It just seemed like everyone was having a good time. Except for a handful of folks that decided to cause some issues later on that evening. But that's being addressed. But in general, there was just a sentiment of everyone just happy to be there and happy to be back out and be back together. So definitely more community support, which we're starting to see really come in now. Also, the city's looking at, I think, different like hiring bonuses, retention bonuses, possible stuff to draw other officers to this area, lateral officers also. So that's still in talks because it's nationwide, a lot of different departments are also suffering staffing shortages. So Asheville was one of the highest percentage losses across the nation. That's the whole reason the New York Times came here and covered us. But different agencies are offering different incentive packages, and we don't have any of that yet. But I know it's in the talks.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if we have any, just as sort of looking at a baseline, it would seem that if there's a national rise in crime, it would be difficult for local measures to really make a big difference if we're part of a larger, social effect that's happening. So I'm wondering if, when we're looking at our changes in our data, like how closely are they tracking national changes, and are we an outlier in that way?
So that is a good question. We in the news we are seeing a lot of incidents. I'm not sure how we compare locally to other cities nationally, because Asheville is so unique in that we have low population numbers, but we have high work commuter and visitor numbers. So that also comes into play with crime stats. So there's so many different factors that are present there with Asheville's crime stats as opposed to other municipalities.
Right, because you could get into you're measuring often crimes per resident, not crimes per person in the area.
Yes.
Which is a really in a town like ours, we know that's such a huge fluctuation. So yeah, that does change a lot of the data that, not just from the police department, but so many things that we end up seeing here.
Yeah, and another thing that's on the horizon is the consultants from the National Alliance to End Homelessness. They're putting together their recommendations now with the different city departments and also with the different stakeholders and outreach groups. So I'm interested to see what their recommendations are going to be as far as ways to help the city and all residents of the city.
Captain Lamb, how does APD compare with Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, Haywood County Sheriff's Department, Henderson County Sheriff's Department in terms of their staff? And if you're 40% down, 39, whatever it was, what are they down? Because I think that's a closer apples to apples.
Yeah, no, I know their patrol numbers are better than ours as far as their percentage staffing with patrol coverage. I know right now the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office is having a hard time filling vacancies within the jail. So their staffing numbers are pretty low within a detention center. But patrol wise, coverage wise, we're the lowest in the region.
Okay. Any other questions for Captain Lamb while we've got him?
I wonder on timeline for decisions around the incentives for officers. Like, what is the timeline for the city to make these decisions? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I know they're having discussions this month, but I'm not sure what the close timeline is. I can find that out and get back to you.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate you coming in and giving that information to us. And we would appreciate being just kind of kept in the loop if there's something that we can do as a group to advise council on any of this going on. Okay. Any further questions for Captain Lamb? And do we have any public comment? Just curious. Probably not.
We do not have any callers.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And hopefully we'll talk to you later. Well, folks, we're going to move right along and actually end on time today. How about that? Maybe early. Design Review Committee updates and reports. Stephen Lee, I think you're up.
Great. Thank you. We met on June 16th and we had one project that we had a final formal review, and this was 72 Broadway. Y'all probably have read about this and you definitely heard about it through our reports. I'm going to guess this was the 6th review, perhaps, Brian, and 5th review. Just as a reminder, this is a really big one. It's a 9-story. They're calling it mixed use, but there's 2,000 square feet of commercial, but it's 22 hotel units and 18 residential units. We had a very long, lengthy discussion, and there was lots of discussion about how what we're seeing now, what the committee was seeing now, and then what the final design development will be. There were a lot of changes that were made throughout the entire review process, and the architect remained open to suggestions. I think that just the biggest concerns were that there's a level of design that the committee would love to see that sometimes is not available in the review process because they still basically have to go through design development themselves in the design process. But high points, they're definitely doing a green roof on this building. As a part of the review process, we were also made aware that the same team did a really large green roof project that most people aren't aware of. That 145 Biltmore, there was a decision made at the last part of the design process to make that a green roof. So if you have a chance to see it when you're up in a taller building, take a look at it. But so this is starting to make an impact, I think. I'm going to ask any of the other architects that are here if they would like to, Brian or Robin, Ricardo, if anybody has comments they'd like to share about the design review on this?
I would just like to say that I'm wishing we could figure out a way to cut the number of meetings down for some of these projects, both for Downtown Commission's sake and DRC's sake, and for the applicant, the design team as well as the developer. It just seemed like I don't know what all the answers are. Maybe we need to have more of an objective way of measuring things, and or maybe we just need to communicate better. But I mean, I believe the project got better every time they came back to us. I still feel like there's some issues with our design guidelines and how we communicate those to the applicant and what we have purview over, and then what we don't. Go ahead, Robin.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I felt like this project was a good example of the lackings of design review committee in a way. What I would like to the city to define, or whoever's job it is to define, is what exactly our role is, especially in reviewing these hotels, because we are the last stop for this, and that makes me feel pressure. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I don't know what our purview is, I guess, or
Yep.
what our power, or I don't know. So it feels stressful, and then reviewing it so many times, I know that the design team was very stressed and frustrated with us, and we were frustrated with them. So it didn't feel like a good meeting to me. I didn't hang up that call that day with joy in my heart.
Well, and I think there's frustration in that there may be requests that are made or questions that are asked of the design team, and the response is that that is a level of detail that we don't get into until we get into the final stages of design development. And so the renderings that we are looking at, the form of these buildings is very obvious, but a level of detail is missing that in terms of exact materials. And I think for all the folks on the committee that earned their living doing professional services and doing schematic design development CDs, we understand the risks that these design teams will have. I think that personally, my concern, and I think all of our concerns, I'm not going to speak for the committee, but given the scale of this building, there are suggestions and decisions that are made that are involving, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in materials. And, there's a lot of weight being put on this committee to make sure that these buildings look fantastic when they get built. One thing I will add is that the design team mentioned a couple of times that this developer is committed to putting together a high quality product. And so what we ended up with was having to maintain a high sense of trust, which I don't think should be how the committee operates, because we're not always going to have local architects that have a local history and responsibility. Ricardo?
Stephen, to your earlier comment, I think we did ask for, I think there was a misunderstanding on the part of the design team, because we asked for, a certain level of development or a certain level of details, just basically to know what we are reviewing and what we are accepting. And really what we were talking about, at least for myself, was really just schematic level stuff. And they kept going back to, oh, those are, like design development or CD level details. And, as if we were asking for like flashing details and things like that, which is not what we were saying.
Yeah.
We were talking about, the thing with the metal panel, it can change. You can do so many things with metal panel that it'll change the character of that building completely. So at what point does a change in the way that they handle the metal panel becomes a material change, right?
Mhm.
Even though they haven't technically changed the material. So yeah, I think it's important for us, especially with a project of that, you know, scale and that caliber, to really understand what is required of them and what is required of us, because, you know, we reviewed that project to a certain extent. We reviewed it no different than any other project. You know, the materials, you know, the materials that they submitted, the documentation that they submitted wasn't terribly different than some of the other projects we've looked at, but it's a very different project. And maybe there should be a higher standard for a project like that.
Well, and I think that's where Robin was going, and I see you,
Exactly.
Tal.
Yep.
That, you know, when we're the last stop for these use by right hotels, I would like a clear set of guidelines on where my purview is, and then where my recommendations start, so that I can know what they can ignore and what they can't ignore. And then we know what we're doing, and maybe that's something that we as a commission can inform the DRC on. I mean, we're the ones that kind of recommend policy to council. So I'm basically saying this is not just design guidelines. This goes into the hotel ordinance itself, and what we're approving and what we're not approving, and what kind of and honestly, it comes down to how we communicate what we're approving to staff. When they go through and check it, you know, suddenly it's got vertical siding on the whole thing. Well, it's still a metal panel. Does that count? You know, well, you and I, Ricardo, the architects are like, heck no. But you know, according to the text, maybe it does. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Go ahead, Tal. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to bring back the discussion because it feels like it's like an architect discussion, and I don't have, like, either give us a little more info about what are you all talking about, or maybe it's a separate discussion for
what
the
we're
design
talking
review.
about,
Like,
what we're
and
talking.
if it's irrelevant, I don't want to completely derail the meeting if there is no, like, what can the downtown commission help with this discussion beyond an architect discussion on this?
We don't necessarily know. So we are. It is so the hotels kind of have two paths to receive an approval. They can, if they keep it at a certain size as a level 2 project, they can come through the design review committee for approval and P&Z, but they have to get a positive recommendation from us. Every other design project that goes through DRC, it's mandatory review, voluntary compliance. But in this case, it's mandatory review, mandatory compliance, right? So, but then it's like, well, or they can go to council, right? And then now it's political football. So obviously they want to go through us instead of council. All right. So then it's like, well, okay, can I require that they put a green roof on there? There's nothing in the design guidelines that requires that, but I think it's a really good idea. Stephen Lee Johnson thinks it's a really good idea. So the two of us team up and say, hey, you need to do this, right? Now they did. It wasn't me and Stephen Lee, it was Stephen Lee and a couple others. But anyway, and it was a good idea, and I agree with it. What we're trying to say, though, is that what can we require them to do as a policy measure in terms of design? So we need better. The DRC needs better understanding of if we're the stop for these things, what policies and initiatives should we be pushing? And that's something I think the Downtown Commission should inform. Hey, for this project, here's what we want you to do. DRC, before you approve this project, you need to do this. And maybe that's a set of guidelines. Maybe that's a per project thing. I don't know. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much. It seems like you guys are struggling with the trying to get like an objective
100%
definition of beauty, essentially, of something that's aesthetic and that is pleasing. I mean, we're not talking about, in engineering specifications that are, they either make it or they don't. It seems that the nature of what a design review is that everyone's going to see it a little differently. Everyone's going to react to it a little differently. And experts are going to be able to improve the project through a critical process. is seeking, objectivity in our standards through the text of the UDO ever going to result in something that is going to be that we can rely on, and from both the from your perspective, the public's perspective, the developer's perspective? Where do we say we're just going to have some subjectivity in this, and that's just where we're going to have to go with it?
That's what we would like more guidance on. I think is if you had here's some objective things that are in whether it's in the UDO or in a set of design guidelines for the hotel district or a little bit of both. Great. I've been pushing for design guidelines for downtown for, I don't know, 10, 15 years now. Yes, we would like more objective standards, and I'd like to change some standards that are dumb or poorly written. Excuse me. Sorry, Alan Glines. I didn't mean that. So I would like to change some things. But then there's some recommendations from a policy level from groups like this. For example, this project needs a green roof before it receives approval. It's not in a guideline, but this project should have it. Right. So then there's the policy issues, and then there's the subjective stuff where we as professionals can talk, but we can agree to disagree. Todd, you're muted.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Todd Oclicini, Planning and Urban Design Director. Great discussion around all of this, right? And ideally, if we had, I think the opportunity to at some point evaluate our downtown design guidelines, and they're more than 10 years old now. A lot of great discussion around kind of maybe the trade-off between having subjective guidelines that are voluntary versus those objective standards. And I think the UDO has some objectivity to it, but and there's again that trade-off in terms of if you have more objective standards, would that stymie creativity of building design in downtown, or is that something that's needed at this point because you feel that the quality of and design of the overall product and the overall building and project is not acceptable? So I would love to have that discussion. I know it's updating the downtown design guidelines is something that's been kind of on the back burner of our respective work plan for several years now. And but going forward, as we get more resources within the Planning and Urban Design Department and continue to kind of work with the new Design Review Committee, I think one of the things we liked about the Design Review Committee is we felt like once that committee was formed, that might be the spark that we needed to really make some progress on evaluating those downtown design guidelines. So I'd love to have that discussion with you and maybe more detail at another date and with the Design Review Committee about how we might be able to accomplish that. And also if this commission would like, and I would be happy to have a presentation at an upcoming meeting to Downtown Commission and or the Design Review Committee to maybe clarify those roles and responsibilities in terms of what the requirements are now, and kind of clarify what is it exactly the Downtown Commission should be evaluating, what type of recommendations could be the most helpful for the Design Review Committee to help inform their decision as well. And in my view, I think the Downtown Commission, where what makes you really unique as volunteers is your expertise of everything going on in downtown. So you have this higher level policy knowledge, you have this knowledge of just the way things work in downtown, and I think you could really add value by maybe making recommendations pertaining to kind of the social impacts or environmental type impacts of a project, and really having an understanding again of how everything functions in downtown. I would caution though that there's like the green roof as one example, because it's not a requirement in the UDO. Certainly this commission can make a recommendation, or DRC could make a recommendation like that. But if it's not a requirement, we do just have to kind of balance that with, what we have the authority to do and to require, of the applicant. But But again, we with the design review committee, this is the type of feedback that when we formed it, that we would love to have and appreciate getting this type of input, because we think it could certainly be better, and if there are ways to improve that and to also clarify kind of the roles of the downtown commission versus the design review committee, I'd be happy to have that conversation at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you, Todd. I think we need to do that, because I still don't. I think that was the part of the hotel process that everybody hoped it was a black box, at least to me, and it still somewhat is. Go ahead, Robin.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, if I don't want to overstep our authority with this commission, the design review commission, I mean, and I know that we aren't required to have green roofs, so technically we can't or shouldn't require, but it seems like if we're not allowed to do things like that, all we're doing is saying, do you meet the step back guidelines? Do you have the street wall? And basically we're just checking off, which is not, that has nothing to do with this big hotel thing that we went through. And it's not gonna, it's just gonna make people check the boxes for the guidelines. And if that's what we're doing and that's our purview, then that's fine. And it's good to know. And that's what we'll do. But if we're supposed to do more than that, I really want direction from the city on that.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, when I looked at the new hotel guidelines, I had so wished that the design review committee might have a little bit more say in where hotels were put in downtown Asheville. I feel like if there's a vacant piece of land, a developer is going to plop a hotel there. And I think the design review committee or the downtown commission should somehow have the power to say, this street, which to me technically is Broadway, has a lot of historic buildings on it, and we want to keep that feel in this part of downtown. And we just don't want high-rise buildings that are going to overshadow some of the historic buildings that we already have. And I look at Charleston, and I look at their mayor, who many, many years ago, Charles Riley was their mayor. And Saks Fifth Avenue wanted to come into downtown Charleston. And he said, we don't want a big Saks Fifth Avenue. If you can build a small one and you can keep the antique facade, we will welcome you with open arms. And I had so hoped that the downtown commission would be able to have the power to say, this really doesn't fit this street. But that's me. And, I happen to be a preservationist. I happen to love old buildings. So to me, the city really needs to decide what it wants to look like.
Ruth, I'm on your team on that local historic district from Market to Broadway. Yes, but we're going to lose that fight every time, so we've got to go in a different route. This is a good discussion. I think I'm going to take some notes. I see you, Stephen Lee, and try to figure out how to combine what Todd was offering in a future meeting, and really address this from a policy perspective, because I think it's important that us and River Arts, that in the hotel and staff and council are all on the same page. I knew you were going to say something, Andrew. Let me get Stephen Lee first. Go ahead, Stephen Lee.
Thanks. I think three quick things. One, I think the committee has gone a long way working together and come up with some really good recommendations. Two, I sense a significant difference when we meet together in the same room with our design team there. And I think that when we do have that opportunity again, it makes a big difference, because it's easier for us as a team to comment on specific items. Then third, Ruth, I appreciate you bringing this fact up. And just as a point of note, I feel like that in the future, when we as committee members see a project come in, a hotel project come in that we don't feel like is well suited for that exact location, again, that design team and that developer always have the opportunity to take it to city council. If the design review committee said, you know what, we can't approve this simple location. The hard part is that oftentimes projects come in and, you know, there are sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in design fees already spent in developing a site plan. So, but I think it's a very, very, very good reminder. They always have the opportunity to go to city council.
I wish we had a little more purview, because you know, if it's used by right and if the local zoning ordinance allows the building type and everything, then I don't know what to hang my hat on. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm just going to note that, you know, really what we're talking about is the 72 Broadway project that just went through. I mean, it's today's paper, you know, it's what people are, you know, it's what I think what we're all reacting to right now. I will note that this was a better project when it was presented to city council 3 years ago. I think so. I think it was a better looking project. There was more local art. There was more diverse uses, I believe. I think that there was more retail, ground floor retail. I think city council was a tougher customer, and they had bigger teeth than the design review committee has. And I think that means that the projects that city council saw were, you know, I think that there was more pressure on the applicant to really sell to city council, I believe. And kicking this authority down to a design review committee, I think, has some structural problems about you know about how hard they're going to go to try to convince you. And I also noticed that, you know, like when we look at these projects, we have this point-based system now that they have to achieve. So I'm going to just make a little policy suggestion to throw out there. Right now, we've got an up-down system. Yes, no. It's either gets design review approval or not. And I feel that maybe more of a critical process where a grade is issued, that an A grade, for instance, would have the most points, and a D grade would have the least points, and an E would just be a total fail, and a denial. I wonder if that might, being able to add some ways that people could achieve rather than just getting a thumbs up, we made it through, might be helpful, and might be able to sort of stack onto that existing point system for hotel approvals that we have. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming in public right now.
I think that was a good discussion. I've got some notes. We'll circle back with DRC and talk to staff about putting some more of this stuff together. I don't know that we'll have it together for next month's meeting. Maybe in September we can talk about this again. Thank you, Stephen Lee. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Asheville Downtown Association update. Megan?
Hey, good morning. My time has been largely spent on events lately. We've had, or will have, 3 events in the span of 4 weeks, including Monday's 4th of July celebration, but 2 other items of note. We used to do this every other year, and of course COVID has impacted that, but we are going to do our walkability study in September. And this is when we bring a group of volunteers together. Would love to have some help from the Downtown Commission. And the city designed an app for us that's really easy to do. We give folks like 2 weeks to do it. And we basically give you an area of downtown and ask you to go out and just sort of look at the pedestrian experience and use the app to report any issues. So it could be like an obstructed sidewalk or too narrow of a sidewalk, ADA issues, lighting issues, things like that. The app really does make it easy, and it allows the city to track that data. And we've already met with the Public Works Department. They really appreciate this kind of work that volunteers can do to really help them prioritize their projects as they move forward. So I will reach out with more information on that. I also plan to check in with the Downtown Public Space Management Group to get some feedback from them before we go forward with it, because they may have some things to add. And if any of you all have thoughts on what we could be looking for, feel free to share those with me. And then lastly, we are looking to do a candidate forum focused on city council and mayoral candidates, probably sometime in either late September or early October. My original date had a conflict. So working on, I know there are a lot of those, so we may partner up or try to find a way to lessen the burden on candidates, but look for more information coming up on that too. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
I don't think so. You want to roll right into homeless initiatives?
Yeah, I don't know that we got a chance to link the report, so I'm going to.
I sent it to
Oh, good.
Vidilla, so he will link it, I would say.
Okay.
It's not
I
been
think-
linked yet.
Yeah, probably the highlights there were, and both Robin and I's time have been a little busy, but the budget that was approved, I think June 28th, does have an addition of a homeless strategy project specialist, as well as Code Purple funding. So those were two good news items in the city budget. And then I think probably the other big item is that the consultants with the National Alliance to End Homelessness did begin their work in June. And they are currently doing a needs assessment, talking with all sorts of different folks, resource providers, law enforcement, community paramedics, folks that are experiencing homelessness, folks that have been through the system and have exited homelessness. I know they're planning to come back, I think they said in August, and do some more interviews with other groups. And then they will be making recommendations, I believe, in January. And this consultant group is focused on unsheltered homelessness for our area. I think those were probably the two big things. Robin, you think?
Okay. Andrew, is there anything on Public Space Management Task Force?
Yeah, we did meet in and we had a small meeting, but had some really good discussions. It was nice to have another member of Multimodal at that, and I want to say that one of the things that keeps coming up out of these meetings is, why haven't we been working together on this stuff before from Multimodal and Downtown Commission? Because there's so much overlap, and there's so I think that this is really promising. It's really been really great to see people work together on this stuff, because it turns out we have a lot of the same goals, and getting out of silos and working together, I think, has been really helpful. And I think showing that there's some certainly some critical mass for as far as some new approaches to how to use our downtown. And the experience of the pandemic has been incredibly informative, and I think a lot of people have seen public space in new ways due to the experience of the pandemic and how quickly we tried to adapt for that. We're going to be kind of on ice now during Dana's maternity leave. So we may get together, and we were encouraged to use each other as resources and communicate. But Dana is really our key person and behind that effort. And so we wish her well in her new motherhood, and hope to see her in the early fall.
Thank you, Andrew. Everybody should have the downtown update report. It's linked in the agenda, and I think Dana sent it out. Someone did before. I can run through it, or staff can. I'll just run through it instead of making Todd do it. So Pack Square Plaza improvements. City Council is working with Mitchell Silver and McAdams to manage the community visioning process. That's a 6 to 9 month public engagement, and they are working on a temporary public art program, Art in the Heart, and they have a call for artists through August 1st to work on that, and the links are available in the report. The AVL Share Space update, there's some, they made an update to planning and economic development about that initiative on, continuing to utilize some of our public sidewalks, private parking lots, and working on a few paths to permanency. I think that's been a pretty good thing. As I walk around downtown, I've enjoyed it immensely. Carter and Patton stormwater accessibility improvements. That project, I think, is supposed to begin late July, through or August. It's going to take about 16 months, and it's going to impact lanes of Patton, as well as some closures on Carter and South Ann. The advisory board realignment, I should read this instead of just telling you what I know, but I think they agreed to kind of go back to square one and restart the process, is if I could sum it up, and try to come up with a procedure that's a little more grassroots and ground up, and I'll just leave it there. The next design review committee meeting will be July 21st. We should have informal review for the micro housing at 46 Aston. There's, I don't know if Duke's actually coming for the substation on Rankin. Maybe they will. And then there's a small formal review for 58 North Lexington. They're just swapping out some storefront. City council meetings are now being held in person. They adopted the budget approval on June 28th. The July 12th meeting is canceled. The next regular meeting will be July 26th. And I know that one of the things they're looking at is the noise ordinance updates, consideration of adoption of the South Side South Slope Vision Plan. That would be in August. And I think, I know quite, so as far as, and this leads into our next item, all city boards and commissions with quasi judicial functions are in person. And I believe they are scheduled for the other boards and commissions such as us. It would be September. So we should have one more virtual meeting next month. And then after that, we'll go back to our what's normal. We would go back to our normal. Oh, Sasha just sent me or everybody a note. South Slope Vision Plan has a good chance of being on the agenda for July 26th. So if you're interested in that, please attend that meeting. But our in-person meeting will most likely start in the September at 8:30. Go ahead, Andrew.
8:30. That was the answer to my question. So I was wondering if we were going to keep the 9:30 time that we've been using virtually when we go back to in person. I'm in favor of that personally.
Yeah, I think we would go back to the 8:30. The reason we had to go back to the 9:30 was to give staff time to get everything ready for the virtual piece, was my understanding. But I like the 8:30 and getting out of there at a decent time myself. I think that's okay. There's a lot to be said for the virtual. It allows people to attend and view that wouldn't be able to otherwise. But being in the same room together is nice too. So anyway, any comments on any of that so far? I don't know when the updated bike lane plan is coming to us, possibly next month. I don't have that confirmed yet. And I'll probably start putting together some stuff for this DRC guideline discussion for our September meeting. Any comments or questions? Wonderful. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Early. Look at that.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Very good. Robin makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Andrew. All in favor, log off. We'll see you soon.